Hello everyone, welcome to the daily editorial analysis of Shankar IAS Academy, 8th April 2025. Displayed here are the list of articles that we will be discussing. The first article, a case for a fair seat allocation. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. In this topic, we will be discussing what is delimitation, what are the concerns associated with the delimitation of post 2026. And the next article is education for marginalized communities. So recently an Oxfam report highlights a growing education inequality in India, especially among the marginalized communities. So in this topic, we will be discussing what is the status of marginalized community, education status of marginalized communities in India, what are the challenges faced by them, and a way forward. And this article is also taken from The Hindu. So without much delay, let's begin our discussion with the first article. A case for fair seat allocation. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. Why we are discussing this article today? We know that the discussions or debates related to the delimitation exercise of post 2022 has become a matter of a political matter in the southern states. And last month we know that the Tamil Nadu organized an all-party meeting to discuss the concerns associated with the delimitation exercise of 2026. So the question is, what is meant by delimitation, and why the southern states are concerned with the delimitation exercise of post 2026. So to answer this question, we have to watch the video and we have to understand what happened in India after the independence and how the Indian demography changed after the Indian independence. So without much delay, let's get into the discussion. So before getting into the discussion, we have to understand about the relevance of this topic in UPSC. In UPSC mains, we can expect the questions in general studies 2 under the topic governance, constitution, polity, social justice and international relations. So let's begin with the question, what is meant by delimitation? Delimitation is a process or an exercise of redrawing the boundaries of constituencies based on the demographic changes. So we can say that based on the latest census, because the latest census is it's a process of recording the demographic changes. And the objective of this delimitation is to ensure fair representation of the people in the parliament. So Article 82 of the Indian Constitution talks about the delimitation of the constituencies for the representation in the Lok Sabha, while the 170 of the Indian Constitution talks about the delimitation of constituencies to ensure fair representation of people in the state legislative assembly. And it also mandates that the population to seat ratio should be nearly equal across the state. Then only we can ensure fair representation of the people, right? And we have another article, that is Article 81 of the Indian Constitution, talks about Lok Sabha's seat. As per the current situation, the seat is limited at 550, which includes 430 for the states and 20 for the union territories. So if you look into the India's delimitation journey, you can see that the delimitation, like I mentioned, it's a process of redrawing the boundaries to ensure fair representation. So the first delimitation in India happened in the year 1951-52 based on the 1951 census, and the second delimitation happened in India in the year 1961-62 based on the 1961 election, and the third delimitation happened in India in the year 1971-72 based on the 71 election census. And here comes a change. That means in the 1970s, the India went through a lot of demographic changes as well as political changes. You can see that in the 1975, June 25th, India went under national emergency. During this time, the government of India brought 42nd Amendment. As per this 42nd Amendment, the delimitation process will be frozen. And what happened was that soon after, that means very next year, that is in the year 1976, the government of India brought the National Population Policy. The objective of this National Population Policy is to reduce the Indian population. And the government took various measures, including sterilization, to reduce the Indian population. But the result of the population policy was not as we expected. The southern states reduced their population, while the northern states or the Hindi-speaking states, the population in the Hindi-speaking or the northern states remained the same or increased. So this brought this widened the demographic difference between the southern states and the northern states. And you can see that the fourth delimitation happened based on the 2001 election, 2001 census, and in the 2002, the 84th Amendment further postponed or frozen the delimitation exercise till 2026. Now the government is planning to conduct another delimitation, and we are expecting that delimitation will happen after based on the 2031 census. Yes, the 2026, the upcoming delimitation exercise will be based on 2031 census. So what are the concerns associated with the delimitation exercise of 2026, or why the southern states are more concerned about this? We will discuss that, but before that we have to understand what is mean by delimitation commission. So delimitation commission is a commission which is responsible for the delimitation, and it is a statutory body, which means it is brought under a parliamentary law, that is Delimitation Act of 1951. So it is an independent body appointed by the president, and the members includes retired Supreme Court or High Court judges, Chief Election Commissioner, and the State Election Commissioner. Once the decisions are final, then it is not open to judicial review as per the 329A of the Indian Constitution. Therefore, the report or the decision of the Delimitation Commission is not open for the judicial review as per the Article 329A of the Indian Constitution. Please remember this statement. This is very important because the delimitation based questions can be expected in the coming prelims, because it is a biggest political issue or a matter of debate in India currently. So please note this: the decisions of the Delimitation Commission is final. And what are the emerging tensions, or why the southern states are more concerned, or why this delimitation exercise of 2026 is a concern? First is federal imbalance. So like I mentioned, the delimitation based only on population status gives higher representation for Hindi speaking states or the northern states, while it will undermine the the efforts taken by the southern states under the national population policy of 1976 and 2000. So therefore the representation for the southern states may fall. So as per the estimation, the representation may fall from 24% to 19% according to the Economic Times. And the next is punishing the population control. So it is like the falling of the representation. The southern states are considering it as a it as a step that is undermining their effort to control the population. And the next is demographic distortion. That is, in the 1971, the the population to seat ratio was somewhat equal. And after the 1976, the national population policy, we can see the Indian demographic got widened because of the high population in the northern states and the low population in the southern states. Therefore, the current delimitation exercise which is going to happen based only on the population may further widen the representation of the people as well. This is another concern. The next is threat to cooperative federalism. So India is considered as a union of states as per the Article 1 of the Indian Constitution. Therefore, this delimitation of 2026, if it gives more representation to the highest population with a high population, therefore in that way it is undermining the idea of the union of states, because it is affecting the idea of equality among the states, risking the national unity, because we know that the southern states are already concerned about the delimitation exercise of 2026. And what can be done, how we can sort out or how we can balance this tension? The first is weighted seat allocation. That means using a composite index instead of not just depending on the population. That means considering other factors like economic growth, investment, education, everything has to be considered instead of just considering the population. The next is gap deviation. That means limiting the differences in population per seat ratio across the states. So this will help in ensuring the fair representation even after the 2026 delimitation. If we can cap, if we can bring a difference in population per seat across the different states. And the next is strengthening Rajya Sabha's role. Rajya Sabha provides representation for the state, so therefore we can enhance its role in safeguarding the state interest. And the next is federal consultative body. So it can be set up an independent body, which means setting up an independent body with the equal state participation for fair and transparent delimitation. So in this topic, we discussed the delimitation exercise of 2026. So under this topic, we discussed what is the history of delimitation in India and what are the concerns associated with the delimitation in India. And we also discussed what is delimitation commission. We highlighted that the delimitation commission's decision is final, which means it is not open to the judicial review under the 329A of the Indian Constitution. So based on our discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. The question is, the proposed delimitation exercise post 2026 raises concern about the balance between democratic representation and federal equity. Critically examine the implications of population-based seat reallocation in the Lok Sabha on cooperative federalism in India. It is a 15-mark question and you have to write around 250 words. Write your answer, post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. Why India's education system fails marginalized communities and how to change it. The article is taken from The Hindu. Why we are discussing this today? Recently, an Oxfam report highlights that the India's economic growth is marked with the growing inequality, especially in education among the marginalized communities. So in this background, we will be seeing what is the educational status of marginalized communities in India, what are the challenges faced by them in education, and way forward. So coming to the UPSC relevance of this topic, you can expect questions related to different communities and societies under the topic society in GS1, and in GS2 also this topic is relevant. You can expect questions related to the development of communities and social sector, and also it covers other sectors like education and health. So without much delay, let's begin our discussion. First, we are going to see the education status of marginalized communities in India. So as per the annual status of education report titled as Beyond Basics. As per this report, only 42.5% of SC/ST children between the age of 3 and 5 attends any preschool. And the next is educational or learning gap. That is, only 43% of the class 5 students can read class 2 textbook, and only 25.6% can solve problems. And the next is low higher education gross enrollment ratio. That is, you can see that in the higher education, the only 27.2% SC students and 25.8% ST students are enrolled, and this is much lower than the national average. And the next major issue is the underrepresentation in the elite institutions like IITs and IIMs. And in that too, for higher education, only 10% of SC students are there in PhD enrollments, and the status of the ST is just 2%. And in major institutions like I mentioned, IITs and IIMs, there is a lack of SC/ST faculties. And as per the recent RTI data, 90% of the professors in top institutes are from upper caste. So this is showing how the education inequality is happening, or the status of education inequality in India. And the next is the exclusion of disabled students. That means high illiteracy and poor school completion among the differently abled children in India. This is another major concern about the growing inequality in the education among the marginalized communities. And coming to the challenges faced by the marginalized communities in education, first is a poor infrastructure. That means lack of quality teachers and schools, smart classrooms and resources, especially in the rural regions of the country. And the next is economic barriers. That means that includes high cost of coaching, traveling, and urban accommodation. So this will prevent the children from the rural area to go and study in an urban area or in higher in prestigious institutions. The next is cultural and social exclusion. That means the children from the marginalized communities are often facing issues like mockery, alienation, and other psychological burden in elite institutions. And the next, language barrier. That means the children coming from the marginalized communities or from the rural area or from the remote area often face the problem of communicating in English, and they will face this problem especially when they're reaching in urban scenario or in higher education. The next is stigma of reservation. That means the children who got into prestigious or higher institutions through reservation often labeled as quota students, and this is bringing a lot of burden to their mental health. It will affect their confidence to study in that institution. The next is discrimination. That means caste based discrimination, microaggressions and segregations among the between the children or between the faculties and children in education institutions also affects the the studies of the children from the marginalized communities. And the next is unequal job access. That is, caste network dominate employment, undermining equal opportunity for everyone. So as per the recent RTI data itself, we discussed that 90% of the professors in higher institutions are from upper caste communities. So this is showing how much the inequalities are existing in the Indian education system. So coming to the way forward, so what reforms can be done? The first is redefining the merit. That means recording the socio-economic background and opportunity gaps. We have to understand that everyone's starting point is not equal. It is not same. So it is different for people from different background. So the merit system should also consider this. And the next is strengthening reservations. That means ensuring SC/ST OBC quotas in faculties and admin posts. So this will ensure more representation of people in faculty in higher education, as well as this will encourage more students from these backgrounds to study in higher education institutions. Next is providing better support system for the children from the marginalized communities. That includes providing mentorship and remedial programs. This will help them to understand, help them to communicate in English, understand the concepts better, and at the same time, this will also provide them more opportunities to discuss with the professors and grow further in their field. And the next is providing free mental health services. So this is very important because of the because of the children who are moving from the rural background to urban background may experience psychological shock, or we can say that a cultural shock, because the people are not used to this. So to ensure their better health, better mental health, we have to provide free mental health services in the institution to the children. And we know that in every institution, there is a room for psychological counselor. So that we have to make it mandatory. And the next is improving infrastructure. That means investing more in government schools in underserved areas. So this will this will provide more accessibility to the children from the marginalized communities to education. The next is combating discrimination. So discrimination, like I mentioned, it affects the mental health, it affects the confidence, and it also brings a lot of psychological stress to the children. So therefore we have to ensure zero tolerance policies and laws to deal with such issues. And the next is accessible education. That means subsidized coaching, creating free regional language resource. So this will help them to overcome the language barrier. At the same time, subsidized coaching for government exams or any other entrance exam will encourage the students to take up such exams and grow in such field and ensure better representation of every communities in India. So ultimately, it will pay for an inclusive society. So in this topic, we discussed the education status of marginalized communities in India, what are the challenges faced by them, and way forward. So based on the discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. Meritocracy must be redefined according to account for historical and structural disadvantages. Critically examine the statement in the context of India's higher education system. So it's a 15 marks question and you have to write around 150 words. Write your answer, post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's editorial analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time update from Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to me. Have a nice day.